Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question: what makes people say, why not? Welcome back to Why Not. Today I am joined by Maggie Lawlor. So she is owner of Simple Strength in Leixlip. She is, okay, it's been a while since I've had one, but she is a PT coach. She works also predominantly in the non-diet space, which if you listen to my content, you know I'm very, very much on that buzz. But first off, I just want to say welcome to the podcast, Maggie. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on, Chrissy. Thank you.
And I haven't had a conversation like this in a while, and I saw your content and I was like, I need to get her on the podcast, literally, like straight away. So firstly, can you tell me a little bit about who you are, what do you do, and just everything you want everyone to know?
Yeah, thanks a million. So I'm a gym owner and my gym has been up and running for a little more than 2 years now. And I work with Coach Rebecca. She's the other kind of person who you might meet in our gym. And we do small group training and it's strength training. That's the full-time job. I have 2 kids and I love training myself. And I'm passionate about non-diet coaching and being in the inclusive space. So having a space for everybody to exercise in is what I'm really aiming for.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It is really great to see people who are kind of pushing that, like, as I said, inclusive training for health, not for being skinny or look at a certain way. But I suppose, how did you end up here? Like, bring it back to the start. What brought you into working with a gym, opening your own gym, and ending up down this kind of area of it?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back a little while to when I started strength training first. I was running and I kind of was getting injured. So the physio said, as we've all heard it before, you need to do some strength training. So like, okay, I'll go and do that. And I started training out of a gym. That was a non-diet gym as well. Okay, so it really kind of it has stayed my North Star, if you like, but that gym closed down. And soon after that, I was doing classes in another venue, but soon after that, COVID came and everything went online, which was kind of, it was just a funny time for everybody. But I'm a nurse also, so that was something that I felt like I was going to go back to because everything was changing and I wanted to go back into nursing. So I did that and stopped in the online training after a while because I was divided myself into a few different things that I couldn't really, too many things were going on. So I just went back to nursing and once things kind of settled down and things started opening again and people started asking me if I was putting on any more classes, and I was thinking, yeah, I'd love to, but I don't have a space, and I kind of didn't really have I don't know what you call it, but I just didn't really know how to go about it. So I was kind of just hemming and hawing for a little while and decided, okay, I'll rent a space in a community centre, do a couple of hours a week, see who wants to train with me. And it went well. And I was kind of like, okay, I want to add on more class times and provide more services, but I couldn't do it in that space. It was kind of, we were wheeling kettlebells around the whole community centre every time I wanted to put a class on. And, it was just like, okay, I need to find a gym. I need to open a gym. But I just had to decide whether I was going to be nursing or opening a gym because I knew I couldn't do both. And because COVID was kind of changing again, it kind of was a natural transition for me to test the waters. So I found a little gym space, done it up, and when I knew I was confident enough that I could make it work, I was ready to leave nursing then. So I did that, and that's kind of how I came to have a gym, I suppose. I just was like, okay, this is what I want. I just made sure it was what I want, and I'm going to just make it work now. And kept trying, still trying.
What was it like actually making that decision? Like, because I suppose nursing would be considered a stable job, and you're going out, like, I know you were doing a bit of both for a while, but like you're going out and you're going into like running your own business, running like a gym, which, like, let's be honest, fitness is a massive industry, but still can be considered like risky, I suppose. And it was a risk, but obviously, you having your clients is and people want to be there. It's been fine. But what was it like making that like decision?
Yeah, it did feel like a bit of a risk. And I was going month to month, like I was feeling like, okay, I'm just gonna hopefully be here in 6 months' time. I'm hopefully just gonna keep making this work. But I felt that I kept my nursing registration. So it made it feel like less of a jump, I suppose. Even though I had left the hospital, I still had the flexibility. If I really needed to, I could go back. So I suppose I have a situation where my kids are a little bit older. They're 9 and 12. They still need me, but they're not babies anymore. So that was one kind of thing I didn't have to think about, that they're both in school now. And I could have gone back to nursing if I really needed to. And yeah, I just was kind of prepared to just say it's worth a chance. Like it's not definitely going to work, but I'm going to just try my best and just pluck away at it.
Yeah. And for you, at what point as well, like I think a lot of people who become PTs, coaches, they do like start off with it, like gym being a hobby or something like that, and then they think, actually, maybe I could do this. Like, at what point did this kind of transition happen to you? Like, did you start thinking, maybe I'll actually do this as a job as opposed to just going as a participant?
Yeah, what happened was, when I was just like going to the gym, really enjoying it, I became pregnant and was training through my pregnancy, probably a little bit like into the unknown. That was, I was really loving it, but kind of didn't really know what I was doing in a way, like how I needed to change things for my body, or what to expect as the pregnancy went on. And then on the other side, that was when after I had the baby, I wanted to go back to training and go back to running. I was like, oh, I want to do this, but how do I do it in the best way possible? And I just was really interested. So I started reading up, and I was thinking, okay, I started taking some courses, and with a bit of encouragement, I said, okay, I'm going to go and take a fitness course. So the place where I was working before was called Grassroots Fitness, and the owner kind of had suggested, is this something that you'd like to see yourself doing? Because, you're doing you'd have a bit of experience now, and, that was kind of what planted the seed, I suppose. So I knew I wanted to help women who'd been in the situation I was in, don't know how to train during pregnancy, don't know what it's going to be like when you have to come back. How do you manage being up all night with a baby and still trying to do your training the next day, or what to expect from your body, how it's changed, what you might run into. And still navigating that with the non-diet culture has been, because a lot of that was, say, 9 years ago, a lot of it was focused on getting your body back, and it still is very much.
God, the amount of magazines, I'm in my 30s, so I've grown up with those things, and they're like, this celebrity back to pre-baby 8 weeks later. You're like, what
Yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah, it's scary stuff.
It feels like only now people are like, that shouldn't be a requirement after birthing a child.
Totally. Yeah, and it's like it's such a pressure, like, and it's stressful enough as it is. Like, it's a time when you're just doing your best, and then this other stuff comes at you, and it's too much. If even at the best of times, it's too much, but when you've had a baby, you're like, okay, the pressure gets really high. So that's kind of how I knew I wanted to be on the path of a fitness instructor, helping this type of person, people like me coming back from pregnancy, but also I really just loved training people, like general population, helping people with their goals. And I kind of did think that I wanted to own a gym, you know, going back a good bit, like that was something that I did want. But I suppose like we were saying earlier, I would be like, why would I do that? Like, why would I have that by myself? Like, then eventually I was thinking, no, if you want it, you're just gonna go for it, like, because why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Like this podcast. So I suppose as well, I'd love to like talk about training through pregnancy, because I think there is still, now I follow a few accounts to talk about it, but I think there's still a common, almost like a misconception that once you're pregnant, you should not exercise. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, and I suppose could you maybe dispel a few of those misconceptions and like even explain how it can be beneficial for a woman who is pregnant to continue training? Obviously with adaptions, like you're not going to be doing the same things you were when you're not like growing a human, but you know, there's so much you still can do, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot that you can do, and it's a really good idea, because you're training for, you know, for your own strength, but also you're thinking about postpartum when you have your baby, and you need your strength then as well. Like you're going to be doing lots of repetitive tasks, and you know, life is physical as well when you're postpartum. So yeah, maintaining strength just is going to help with the everyday life stuff during pregnancy. And it can be part of your social life. You know, if you're somebody who's used to going to the gym, it can be really important to just stay doing that, keeping mobile. It can help to kind of ease out some aches and pains, feels good for the body. And yeah, like lots of all the benefits that a regular everyday person would have from exercise. But the body is changing, so we're going to take into consideration that your belly's going to change. You know, you're going to get bigger. Impact might not feel good, say, for instance. That was one of the things that I had at the time. Like, it's a hard thing to navigate if you are someone who loves training to a certain intensity, because it's hard to see that go, but eventually it will. Like, for everybody, it'll change at different times, but inevitably you're going to have to start slowing down and doing things differently. So the important thing is knowing when that time is, I suppose, and it will be different for everybody, but how you would say, from a coach's point of view, how you want to train your clients is to have some body awareness. Like your belly's growing as your baby is growing. That's going to affect how much support is there, especially in your pelvic floor. So we want to be cognizant of that when we're doing, say, plyometric exercises, running, lifting heavy loads. And what we're considering is symptoms. Are we having pain around the pelvis, pain in the symptoms of heaviness or dragging or incontinence in the pelvic floor? All these are just things that it's time to start doing things differently. Maybe just, people need a little reminder of that, because the common thing is people just say, oh, well, listen to your body, but nobody really tells you what you have to listen for. And that was the thing I found hard. Yeah, like we say, oh, I'm listening to my body, but I'd spent a long time training not to hear my body. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm listening to my body, but totally listening with my fingers in my ears, like not prepared to hear what it was saying, you know, and I'm waiting for that signal, but to be really loud and clear before I'd stop doing something. When you kind of are trying to tune into things subtly before that, you know, so that's why working with a coach is going to be really important, like just helping you make little adjustments to keep you going for as long as you can, doing whatever you can.
And like, how would you say you could listen to your body better? If for someone saying, I am listening to my body, like you were saying, but they're really listening with their fingers in their ears, like what can you look out for? What can you kind of go over it? Okay, that is actually a sign.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd say from your first trimester, you're really going to be thinking of your fatigue levels. Like, it's exhausting for a lot of people. Feeling tired. You'll have to respect the energy levels of the body, and sometimes it'll just be a case of I absolutely can't do anything else. I have to go to bed. Or it might just be, oh, I can push it a little bit and get to the gym. You'll just have to find the balance, but be aware, like that's something you can, it's not going to be harmful if you miss a gym session, and take rest instead. Especially for someone who just has always been the gym person and never misses a session. You have to get that mindset of not going is fine. Yeah, it's hard to kind of be okay with that sometimes for people if they're used to just plowing through a bit of tiredness. But ultimately you'll feel better if you're having a sleep rather than if you're trying to, burn the candle at both ends. You might be nauseous, and training, are you really going to be feeling good after if you're extra tired and you're feeling sick? Are you listening for any pain in your body? So are you getting pelvic girdle pain? That's a really common thing. And it might just be a case of making some adjustments and talking to your coach, but you don't want to keep pushing through that. Eventually it's just going to be very uncomfortable. So some of the things that you probably won't be able to ignore would be like leaking. If you're leaking or having incontinence, that's like, you don't want to try and push through that, because that's like one of the, we want to really pay attention to that. You may need to see a pelvic floor physiotherapist, for example, or talk to your healthcare provider about that. And if you have a coach, they may be able to guide you through that and help you make some changes. So yeah, like, how you listen is just, I would say the mindset is probably the biggest adjustment some people will make. It was definitely one of the things that I struggled the most with. It is the hardest adjustment. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting you even mentioning about the tiredness thing, because I think that doesn't even have to be exclusive to someone who's pregnant, because that's something that's taken me a lot. Like, in the last year or two, sometimes I've just been like, no, today you shouldn't train. You can, there's another day in the week you can do it. There's another day you can do something else. You can do lighter. You can even just do nothing. But sometimes you do have to go. There's a fine line between I could do a light session and be grand, or I'm absolutely I'm not lazy. I'm absolutely just bollocks basically, and I need that rest. And being able to identify that is a really, really big thing. I think that probably a lot of women struggle with.
Yeah. Like, during pregnancy, I would have felt like taking time off because of tiredness was a weakness, that it was a sign that I wasn't prepared to work hard enough, that I would probably be judging myself really harshly for that and giving myself a hard time. But is that like part of health? Like, if we're exercising as a health behavior, how healthy is it to be judging yourself and talking rubbish about yourself because you stayed? I remember putting on my shoes, this is towards the end of pregnancy, and I wasn't able to reach my feet, and it was so that I could go out for a walk, but I was absolutely wrecked. If I could go back, I'd say, oh, look, you could just sit on the couch. It's not wrong to look after your your rest time, and you're preparing for something big, and your baby's coming soon. But at the time I was like, oh, if I don't get my walk in, I really should be doing this for my health and for my exercise. But like, really,
yeah, like, at what point is that actually healthy? You're right. Like, it's mad to think that, like, you're going, God, I'm being lazy if I'm not doing it. It's like, you're literally growing a human being. Like, I think people really take that for granted, like how like massive that is in relation, like not even the size of baby wise, but like when you think about what pregnancy entails, like, is it not surprising that sometimes you're a little bit tired, or maybe you don't feel like doing something,
Yeah.
I've never done it, so.
Yeah, but like, yeah, it's so significant. Like, your body's working so hard. You're creating another human and an organ to supply food to that human. Your body's making all these adjustments. So like, even if I had, I would kind of have known that all the time, like this is major, your body's doing lots of work already, like it's creating another blood supply for somebody else. But what really influenced me was I want to get back to training as soon as possible after I have this baby. So for me to keep my fitness up now will pay me back later on. And while yes, the fitness did help me later on after I had the baby, I still had to have a recovery period, and I still had to look after another. I still had two kids then. So I would say it was probably some of this diet culture stuff creeping in.
Was like I need to get back training because not necessarily, well, obviously you do enjoy training, it's what you do, but like was part of that, like I need to get back in proper shape, like, you know.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, like I would have seen how negative that would have felt, but because I would have judged myself kind of harshly for not getting back as soon as possible, I didn't want to end up in a situation that made it any harder for me to go back. So even despite going through all the tiredness or doing things that might have been a little bit risky at the time, not listening to myself, not listening to what my body was telling me, I thought that the payoff would have been better than that. And I suppose that just shows how influenced we can be, or conditioned we can be to, you know, want to be approved of, I suppose, or not show that, you know, we do need time off, or, you know, that it's hard being a new mom, or, you know, that you definitely may not have that priority when your baby comes, you know, especially if you're, you know, struggling. Nobody wants to be saying, oh, I'm finding this really hard right now, going back to training is probably just not for me right now. And maybe it wasn't worth it, all the rushing around. You know, I don't want to sound negative, like it was all great. I really totally enjoyed it, but just with a bit of hindsight, I suppose, and coming from where I am now, taking a more intuitive approach, you know, I would definitely do things differently now.
Yeah, but like again, like it's not, I don't think it's negative. You're explaining what you learned from doing this, and by explaining this, you could help another woman who is in your situation right now going, I can't stop. Like, I know myself, I would be a bloody nightmare, because I do love training, I do it as well for my head, but again, there is that thing of like, I don't want to lose my fitness. That's always going to be in the back of my head, even though I would consider myself like a non-diet, a more like strength-based, health-based person. I know that that's still going to be a little voice in my head. It's like, you're going to get bigger. You're going to, like, you know, and like, you're going to lose your muscle. More for me, I don't lose my muscle. And it's like, again, this is a little bit like, you know, you can get your muscles back. It's a little bit different, you know what I mean? So I think it is good to like be highlighting that and saying, like, if you were to go back, you would give yourself that kindness, you know? And again, hindsight's 2020. So it's like, it's very easy, not very easy. I suppose it is easy in a sense to say now.
Yeah.
But again, like that, if someone who is in that same mindset right now, they could be listening to this and going, okay, yeah, no, I can't actually let myself off, you know?
Yeah, like what I had said to myself, it was almost like I'd made a deal with myself that I'll stay running for as long as I can. And then as soon as I can go back, I'll aim for like the biggest thing that I can do the next time I get back to training, you know, like, and because I'd said that, backing out of it, even though it was only in my head, backing out of it would have felt like, oh, are you just letting this go? Are you just not going to do this? You know, just being really hard. And if I was to hear somebody else, like as a coach, if I was to hear somebody else say that, I would be like, look, you know, there are other options. There are other ways of doing this. It doesn't have to be immediate. You're doing a great job. Is there something else we can focus on in the meantime? Can we break this down a little bit? Instead, when it was me talking to myself, it was like, oh, come on now, you can do better. You can do a bit better than that, you know.
We're always way more harsh on ourselves though than we are on others, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely.
But seeing that you were in that kind of scenario, okay, obviously when you had the child, and then you already had a kid, so you have 2 kids now. I imagine trying to get back to training was a lot more difficult, not just from the healing perspective, but having 2 kids to look after as opposed to one. How did it feel then when you were kind of forced into that time out? Like, how did you deal with that? How did you find that? Or did you manage to find a way around it very quickly and get back to training possibly too early?
Well, it was I knew how, like, I couldn't leave the house. Like, the way it was with my kids, like, baby was never sleeping, and yeah, it was extremely difficult to leave the house. It wasn't the kind of baby, and I have moms coming into a mom and baby class, and like, it seems like, you think my baby is going to be the one that's crying the loudest, and it's going to be really disruptive to the class, and it's going to be, if my baby cries, it's the worst thing in the world. But literally, my baby didn't stop crying, like, for months. I couldn't put him down. Even putting him in the buggy to go for a walk was really hard. So yeah, I once I found my way back to exercise, I did that through getting up really early in the morning. When looking back on it now, I would say I probably could have been staying in bed. So I had a pelvic floor physio checkup after about 2 months postpartum, which is a really good idea for anybody who is going back to exercise. And this is 9 years ago, so we kind of talk about it a lot now, but back then it wasn't, like, really talked about. So that's like an assessment where the physio can tell you a little bit about how your pelvic floor is getting on and what type of activity it's going to be ready for. So you'll have your GP checkup at 6 weeks, which is going to be kind of like a general how are you kind of thing, but they won't give you a lot of detail about your exercise. And they might say, oh yeah, you can go back to exercise now. And somebody might say, oh, okay, that's great. I'll go back to whatever I was doing before I was pregnant, at whatever level that might have been for them. But I did know from what I had been picking up on and reading that I do need to go and get a physio check. And I did that. And after, I'd say I was probably about 4 months, Patrick was about 4 months old. Then I started going back to running, and my goal, I had a very definitive goal. I wanted to be in the Dublin Marathon that autumn. So, and as a very, I'm a recreational runner at best, so, but that was my target. And I told myself that before I'd had the baby, that's what I wanted to do. So that's how that was definitely on the cards.
Okay. And did you do it?
Yeah. I did it. I did it. Yeah, it was, I used to feed the baby at around 4 o'clock in the morning when he was always awake for a feed, and then I would go out and do my training and be back on time for his next feed. Sometimes I had to split the run up into two parts to come home and do a feed in between. I used to run up and down outside the house because I didn't know if he was going to want to feed in the meantime, and I'd have to be close by to get in there. And yeah, on the marathon day, then I had my breast pump in a little bag on my back, and I had friends help me crew along the way to, I wasn't sure, I hadn't been away from the baby for that long, and I knew I was going to definitely be a good few hours out there. So I had people to help me crew and carry my pack, and I stopped and I expressed milk outside Crumlin Shopping Centre at a bus stop along the way. And when I look back on it now, I'm like, oh wow,
that's amazing. Like that's cool.
I wouldn't do that again. But at the time, it made me feel like, I felt good. I was glad that I'd done it. And it was an achievement. Yeah, like it seems strange to look back on it now.
Yeah, well, like that to me, like another thing I've never done, and I've said this multiple times, I won't do it, is I'm not running a marathon. So to do that and then like pause for a little, like, let the milk out, make sure the baby's okay and continue on, like it's so cool. And I think I know it's just so amazing when you hear these stories as well, because it's just like the things women can achieve when they put their minds to it as well,
Yeah, like definitely was a big achievement. As well as like what I would say about diet culture having an influence on what I was doing. I would say I probably looked at other people for inspiration, which is helpful, but it depends on who you're looking at. And if you're not an Olympian, you maybe don't have to go to those lengths. You know, if you're a recreational person like I am, you could probably have a little bit more moderation, or, you know, slow things down a little bit. But no, for me at the time, I was extremely like motivated to do that.
Yeah. And it's interesting to say like the Olympians as well. Like, and again, like a lot of them are just like driven constantly. But like, it's mad how even if you are like a top level athlete, if you want to have a child before your career is over, you literally have to take a year out. It's just mental, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And like if they don't, a lot of those athletes, if they don't run, they don't get paid if they're a sponsored athlete. And so that's why like it would be fine, say, even if you're looking at somebody who's doing it because they have that level of fitness. But if you're modeling yourself off somebody who literally performs at that level for their living, like that's in a whole other level. And I know when I was pregnant, I used to be kind of Googling pregnant runners and how fast could I get back to running postpartum. But I was kind of taking the lead off people who really are at like a whole of their living depends on this. Like they are top level elite athletes. There was no real need for me to model myself on them. But there you go.
I think that's something like, again, like we mentioned earlier, them talking about, you know, like celebrities snapping back into their pre-pregnancy body in like 8 weeks, and like that, like top level athletes. Like, do you think that's a trap a lot of women fall into? Is because obviously a top level athlete, that's their job to be like that, so they're going back to work essentially. Whereas for instance, any female celebrity, you know, they have minders, they have PTs, they have like, they can have chefs, they can have, you know, and then you've got like someone like, you know, Mary down the street who works a 9 to 5 and has 2 kids, and she's like 6 months postpartum, and she's like, why do I look like that? Like, do you think that's a kind of maybe a trap, I say, some women fall into?
Yeah, I think so. I think the expectation is high, like especially as people get ready to go back to work. I think sometimes that's kind of a milestone. But if you are, I suppose, trying to manage a lot by yourself, if you're running a house and minding other people, maybe on one income, maybe on no income, you know, this is going to be there's a whole lot of factors going on in people's lives at that time. Relationships can be strained. Your whole dynamic of your life has changed. So it definitely, the pressure to be different or to be like not what's the word, not succeeding or not thriving, that feels kind of hard to face up to. Like when somebody asks you how you are, you always want to say, oh yeah, I'm really tired, but I'm fine, I'm okay. Nobody wants to say I'm struggling, like I can't keep
Or
up.
just, I'm grand.
Yeah, I'm grand, totally grand. Yeah.
Fine.
When you go to your doctor's appointments or, you know, your nurse checkups, you're like, yeah, everything's fine. And, you know, you could be dying on the inside, but everything's fine.
Yeah. And I suppose, like, how important do you think it is to be okay saying that and look for the support?
Yeah, it's really important because the patterns that you can develop while you're trying to cope like that can really be, like you said, like it can be a trap. Like as soon as you are trying to keep up with this, it's really hard to step back from it, I think. And the more you take on, the more loads you take, or expectations you take on of yourself, the harder it is, the more immense it feels when you have to stop. I suppose it's kind of like, oh, now I'm going to let everybody down. I'm going to look like everybody's dependent on me to be able to do this, or look, I've been fine for now. Why can't I just keep doing it? But that pressure will be overwhelming at a point, I will say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose we're kind of moving towards kind of the gym stuff, and you own your own gym and being a non-diet kind of practitioner. I think so. I don't know, you've probably heard this 6 million times when you tell people what you do, but oh yeah, I just hate the gym. And part of that, I think, comes from this diet culture, this like, you need to go to the gym to lose weight because you're not good enough. You need to go on this diet because you're not good enough. How do you change that view for people? Or actually, the better way to say this is, what is different about your gym that makes it not feel like that, I suppose?
Yeah. Well, people definitely do have equate going to the gym with some kind of punishment, or they expect that they're not going to be able to tune in with their own bodies while they're doing
what other reason would you go to the gym?
Exactly. Yeah, it's because you've been bad and you've been eating stuff you shouldn't have been eating, or the world tells you your body's not good enough, or whatever other reason. A lot of people haven't got that experience, but very, very common that people come in and they're like, oh, I'm so bad, like I've been so bad. And you're like, really? How bad? Yeah, how bad have you been? Come on. What's been going on? But yeah, what I would start off with is finding out people's goals that are totally unrelated to their body. So I won't ask them to be weighed, won't check in on their food plan, like what they eat in a day, that type of stuff, and building up a level of trust that their body is going to be okay at any size in my gym. We will not be talking about diets. You will not be expected to tell me what you've eaten over the weekend. I'm not going to shout at you to do more exercise than you're able to do right now. You're going to be at a comfortable level, working at your own pace, and be able to tell me if something isn't feeling good. And we will make adjustments for your size, for your shape, for what you're able for right now. So it's really like building a trusting relationship with somebody who comes in, that they are in a safe space, and we're not going to, I suppose, when gyms say, oh, you need to be doing this in order to lose weight, it's kind of like they're taking the power away, or the autonomy away from the person. But this is their journey. So it's really like giving them the autonomy over it, letting them have choices and control.
Yeah, I suppose as well, like you mentioned there, like, we're not going to give you food things, we're not going to weigh you or anything like that. What is the point then?
The point, I suppose, like if that is the person, if the person wants the weighing and the measuring, and if that is the purpose of them coming to the gym, then I will say we're probably not a good fit. So if that really is their purpose, I would like them to stay and keep trying and exploring that, because sometimes really what people want instead of the weight loss, and they don't really know it, is a sense of connection, belonging, acceptance. And that is not being given to you in the world that tells you your body is wrong or that you're doing things wrong. So if people can kind of stick with it long enough to feel that grow in themselves and have that trust, then that's really good. But if apart from that, purpose will be making a routine that suits the person, okay, for fitness, which often hasn't happened before. They don't feel like fitness has ever been an important part of their life beyond weight loss. It can be finding joyful movement, which we know people who find exercise enjoyable will have more health benefits than people who are just trying to lose weight. And we know that weight loss doesn't always equal better health, and that health can exist for people at every size and shape. So building these connections, relationships, confidence, trust, that will all have a more positive impact on a person's health than me giving them anything like a calorie restriction.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Like as I said, like I am completely on your side of things with it. It's not about weight loss for me. For me, it's I want to be a tank. That's all I want to do. Lifting heavy weights. But I think I was just asking that question as someone who's gone to gyms and and it's like, what's the point? Well, it's very important to get some form of, like you said, movement, like not just exercise. This doesn't have to be a gym. It can be dancing, it can be anything. It's like something I say all the time as well. And there's so many benefits that don't include weight loss. Yes, weight loss can be a byproduct. If you are more active, there is a strong chance you will. But again, that's not 100%. But it's more like that, like social element, or like that's making your life slightly easier, like recovery from pregnancy, or just being able to walk up the stairs without being out of breath. Like, and these are all these little benefits that people take for granted until they start seeing them, I think. So that's why I kind of went with that, like,
yeah,
what's the point of going to the gym if you don't want to lose weight? Well, here's 3 other ones to start off that we can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they might not, and sometimes it's when people have some ill health that they realize what they really want, or how important things were that they didn't realize before, like when they like I took for granted that I could do all this running until I got a tear in my meniscus in my knee. And then I realized how I had actually taken that for granted, all the things that I could do. Sometimes it's when those things are taken away and you're like, oh, I need to actually start working a little bit harder on other things, even maybe my mindset around exercise.
Yeah. Oh my God, I know the exact thing. I broke my finger before Christmas, and you do not realize how much of a pain in the hole that is for literally everything.
Oh God, is it better?
Mostly.
Oh God. Hard to work in a gym as well, I'd say.
Yeah, like it was also my left hand. I'm left-handed, which probably didn't help. Like it was only my baby finger, but literally, right, this little part is my baby finger, and like it's still not right, but I can use it now. But it's crazy. Those, like you said, do you take it for granted? Like it's so like I could work around training. I used lifting straps and went lighter and stuff like that. But little things like remembering not to use that one to open doors, or writing and stuff like that. And it's that, I think it can be transferred to what we're saying about like the gym. It's like these are the things you're taking for granted that, like you said, unless ill health or something happens, that you don't realize. And it's just interesting because there is that such like negative, I feel, particularly with women, there's a very negative mindset to the gym. And personally, I blame like that the diet culture, that you have to go for punishment, you have to go on these fucking grueling 6-week programs, when it can actually be so much more.
Yeah, I think the thing about walking into a gym, that maybe people are just like, oh, come on, just go on and get on with it. Just you're here, you have to exercise for the sake of exercising. When if you see the person who's coming into the gym, how many negative experiences they've had before, how that's all going to affect how they feel when they walk in. So like the things like making sure that you know their name and that they feel like they're welcome in there. Everybody will say hello, and showing them around, even like the basic things of where things are, because some people are even walking in the door worried, will this equipment accommodate me? Am I going to be safe here? I've had things said to me before and I don't feel good about it. And, this is reminding me of that time that this happened. And that's why they might be like, oh, hell no, I'm not putting myself there again.
Yeah, and I think as well, while I'm like the bigger gyms or commercial gyms, they're great, they have everything. It can be really, really helpful to go to a more studio side gym. I think they're a lot more welcoming. There's a lot more hands-on with the coaches, even if you're doing classes. and it can make that whole gym experience like so different.
Yeah, it can be like making make or break, like how you feel initially, you know, really does, like, it can set the tone for everything after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually seen, like, I have I worked in a semi-private gym, and I've worked in flight, but like I've worked in both extremes, and it's like a revolving door. Like, you know, people who are used to it go to the fly fits who don't give a shite about everyone, but the new people, they're revolving door. There's new ones all the time. Whereas there's a lot of people who have joined this other gym, and it is the social element. It's the friendliness. It's the normal people, as like people say, and they stay and they keep coming back because they've found. And these are people who said they hated gyms, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And they have, but once they build the confidence walking in through the door, and everybody kind of in my classes, they're quite small, say like the maximum would be 12 people in a class, mostly 10 or less. Like, people have such a routine when they come in, they'll stand in the same place, you know, like they really get embedded into that culture in that gym. You know, like they have little things that they always do when they come in, and it's part of the ritual of going to the gym. It's part of like the experience of being out. It might be like, a lot of people are working from home now. It might be the only time that they've gotten to socialize that day, or actually seen real life people, you know, or it's like after their busy day somewhere else, they're finally getting to decompress and just let off some steam, and they can talk or not talk. Like, nobody's going to force you into conversation, but it's there if you want it, kind of thing. But I think that's the importance of having the non-diet culture thing, like where it's a clear rule. We're not going to talk about, I'm not going to trash my body, you know, by talking rubbish about it to make somebody else, you know, just to strike up a conversation. I think that's what happens sometimes, that it's like, oh, I was so bad and I ate this and I ate that, and I'm always so that people kind of bond over that experience. I know that I've been in workplaces before where it's like a competition about who has the worst self-esteem, you know, like, okay, we have a kind of a general rule here where we're just not talking about our bodies like that, and like people know that they're not going to get pulled into that.
It almost is like a race to the bottom, isn't it? Like I'm the worst person ever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, really, what? How bad? Surely not.
Surely not that bad. No, you didn't do anything bad. No, okay, fine.
No.
Sorry, the biscuit is not bad.
No.
And I'm not saying that like in a sarcastic way, because I have that mindset of like, when anyone ever says that to me, I'm kind of like, what's bad about it? But like, it's very understandable, because it's been bet into us since we were like, what, yeah, height or grasshopper, like, you know.
Yeah, the guilt association with food, and like,
being Irish, we've got Catholic guilt at the top of that, like, so.
Yeah. Well, you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah, how dare you? Notions
is right.
So I suppose if someone who is like would love to kind of go down this avenue, but they're kind of not sure how to do it, or maybe they want to try and break out of the non-diet culture, what advice do you have for them?
I would say the type of kind of content that they're consuming is a good place to start. So if you are spending a little bit of time on Instagram in the evening, but it's all weight loss, selling, influencers, and that doesn't feel good for you, maybe turning that off for a little while, or changing your content to bias more positive like accounts, or more affirming people who like seem like they're body positive, or you know, it's been shown that people who have community with the same, like if you're in a bigger body and you have community with other bigger body people, that can feel really good. It's affirming and it's reassuring. So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to have to start following more diets and more diet accounts so that I can get some more tips and find out more ways that I can lose weight, that you know, kind of letting go of that will bring some more acceptance and feeling like, okay, maybe I'm okay a little bit here and I can cool my jets, because there's always going to be another diet. Like, there will be a new one tomorrow. So kind of trying to step away from that first, recognizing when you do see diet culture, because it's kind of in disguise a lot of the time, where you might find, oh, the local gym is offering a nutrition program with accountability, and they also have an in-house body scanner, and they have a competition about how much weight the clients are going to use. They haven't told me it's a diet, but we all kind of know this is probably going to be a diet. So like being curious about what is being offered to you, because diet culture knows that people don't like to hear the word diet anymore. It's not really acceptable if you come out and sell this new diet. People are kind of wise to that. Also knowing that diets don't work, and a lot of people will put even more weight back on after they've finished with it. So just being curious when you hear somebody selling you something, what exactly, if it sounds like a diet, it's probably going to be a diet. And finding ways of finding maybe joyful exercise, like you said, like it doesn't have to be going to the gym. It could be if you like dance or if you like walking, and moving away from extremes. So if you've been used to being told you have to exercise hard to burn calories, or to lose weight or to tone up, if you're used to that extreme, maybe taking a little bit more time to see how exercise actually feels for your body, because tuning into that, you'll be able to say, okay, now I'm hearing more hunger cues. I'm hearing more tiredness. I need a little bit more rest. I actually don't need to get trashed in the gym tonight. I'll wake up feeling a bit better about myself if I take care of these basic needs, like getting enough sleep and food. That's kind of going to be like real self-care, versus I have to go and burn this many calories in the gym tonight.
Yeah, no, they're all really, really good pieces of advice. And I think the more people that we can like start, look, it's always going to be, I think, an uphill battle. We were kind of discussing this a little bit before we started recording, how like basically you're trying to, what we're selling isn't sexy, basically.
No.
And I'm not saying it as like selling because you own a gym, but generally you're looking for people to look after themselves, and nobody wants to do that.
No.
It takes a lot of work for a lot of people to get to that point, but it's a very difficult battle. And it is even just those little things where you explain there, like someone could be listening to this and go, oh yeah, light bulb moments,
Yeah, and like it is confusing. Like diet culture has made it confusing for people to find actual self-care and to make clear decisions, because everything you hear, one thing will conflict the next thing. And if you're not doing it this way, you're doing it really, really wrong. So people are hearing this from all angles every day, and it's kind of trying to break things down into simpler parts and making things like achievable as well. Like people are being told like extremes, and like it's mind-boggling for people just to even contemplate, where do I start with this?
I think that's a big red flag. I think if people who are a little bit like confused, very, very easy way to denote something is if someone says, if you do this, you're doing it wrong, or you have to do this, or this is the only way to do it. If anyone believes that, that's wrong, because people are different things work for different people. We're like, if we were all the same, we'd be all like robots. So I think that's a really good way to like look out for things. People may explain that they have a preference, but if they can't explain the nuances or explain to like your 5, that's a red flag to me, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And like everything you've ever been through in your life is going to shape how you are right now. And just because you walk into the gym, I was talking to my own coach there the other day, like fitness doesn't exist in a vacuum. As soon as you walk into the gym, you don't forget everything that's ever shaped you until this point. And gyms tend to treat people like, and I'm not being negative, like they can be like you could be in a great space, and obviously things have to happen in a certain way for a reason, but you will be we need to have when you're dealing with people, it's nuanced. Like they will be in need of a little bit different attention at different times. And, one day it's going to be different from the next. You could be raring to go and full of energy one day, and then finding, is it okay? Like, is coach going to judge me if I take it easier today? If I'm not taking the heavier kettlebell, or, working as hard as I was last week, are they going to think I'm being lazy today? Because that's often what you hear is like, come on, do more, when you're like, okay, just the energy is not there, but I'm in a safe space right now, so I know that's going to be fine. Nobody's really going to pull me up on this.
And the other thing as well is, especially with women, because of our cycles, that's going to affect your energy levels as well. So that was one thing when I was working in the gym. Like, sometimes I would always try and push people, but if they're like, oh, I'm not great today, I'm like, okay, Grant, just keep going, do what you can.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, that is something that, for me, it's always like, it's better doing what you can than doing nothing. Or obviously, if you decide not to come, if you're knackered, I always say to people, yeah, no, that's fine, don't worry, rest up, you're better off. If you've made that decision, you've made that decision, and it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because when we are like especially as the cycle is a really good example. Like, the energy is so predictably not going to, well, like it can be predictable. Like, I'm just not going to be able for it. And then we could say, like, there's so many things outside of that. If you've had no sleep that night, like, people would come into me, like, and they've been up all night with kids because the kids have had sickness or whatever. Like, oh God, like, just do what you can, and just do your best. It's you're doing great already, just being here.
Yeah, like, I've literally said to people before, and maybe not necessarily the kids or something, but they're like, oh geez, I don't even know what's wrong with me today. Like, and I'm just like, you're human.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be 100% every day. And that goes for men as well. Like, there's so many other factors like that, like sleep, like children, like sickness in the family, stress, work, like,
yeah,
so many different things. And people are like, God, I'm failing at life. You're like, no, you've just had a really rough day. Calm down.
Yeah, just take a chill. We're not used to being told that, though. No, you don't go anywhere where people are like, oh, you should rest more. Like, it's usually in conflict with everything else that you've been told, like, when you have to be 100% productive, like, most of the day, and then somebody says, you could probably do with a little rest.
Yeah, I think that goes in with, like, it's like not even just diet culture, but hustle culture as well. Like, you need to make every bit of, like, every minute count. And it's like, well, sometimes making a count means I'm lying on the couch scrolling Reddit.
Yeah, I definitely, it is connected, like, to diet culture and the productivity capitalism, and it is all about more. God forbid you'd wake up in the morning full of rest and have nothing to do for the day, and that be okay. Like, yeah, just who's going to benefit from that except you? So we can't be doing that.
Absolutely. Like, no, okay, we will allow it for like one day of your holiday, but that's it.
Yeah, one day. But make sure you're back. Like, make sure that helps you be more productive the next day in work or whatever.
Yeah, the only reason we're letting you allow on holidays is when you come back, you'll be better.
Yeah.
You'll have forgotten you're burning out.
Yeah. We're so kind.
Yeah, I know, they're so sound, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, I think actually, Maggie, I'm going to leave it there. I think that is pretty much everything I have to ask you. However, I do ask something at the end of every one of my episodes, and I'm going to ask you too as well. So, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh, best advice. Oh, that was a good one. God, I might have to think about this. I've probably been given good advice and never taken it.
Oh God, you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I suppose professionally, like in the gym, and when I'm talking to my clients or people who I'm working with, one solid thing that I always go back to is you are the expert of your own body. And I'm going to kind of, that my own coach, Coach Jamali, is kind of, that's one of her things, like that she says. So you are the expert of your own body, whether it's in the gym or whether it's in life. So I'm going to expand that to life. And not just your body, but also your mind, and like allowing yourself to tune into those things, taking some, allowing yourself some expertise over that, some autonomy, and not being afraid to make mistakes. I suppose that's one of the other things that I would lean into as well, is like nothing has to be perfect. So do your best, but allow yourself to have that mistake, and take some treat yourself with some compassion if you have made a mistake, because they will try. And if you're trying to make your way, or stand up for yourself, or stand up for somebody else, if you're fighting for something, you have to rest. It's the opposite of resistance, is rest. So allow yourself that expertise over your own self. Take that as your own.
Yeah, I love that. And just like, again, bringing it back to the body and actually thinking about your own body. It's so important, and actually listening to your body.
Yeah.
And being confident to listen to yourself as well. Like you was saying, an expert, like, you are. No one knows you better than you do.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. And if you do something that's not 100%, okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Exactly.
Learned about it.
I want to say as well, just thank you for joining us today, Maggie. But where can everybody find you before you go?
Thanks. My gym is in Leixlip in County Kildare, and the website is simplestrengthleixlip.com. I'm on Instagram, simple.strength.leixlip. And yeah, that's kind of where I am all the time. And thanks a million for having me on.
Yeah, no, it's been great to have you. And also, guys, if you're ever looking for me, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. So on TikTok it is @strongthesaddle, because I got there first. But Instagram, it's @strongthesaddle with an _ at the end, because I did not get there first. And then my website is www.christyhawkins.com. So yeah, just want to say thanks again, Maggie. This was a great chat.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.